can make peace on earth with my own two hands. I can clean up the earth with my own two hands. I can reach out to you with my own two hands, with my own two hands, with my own two hands. Gonna make it a brighter place with my own two hands. Gonna make it a safer place with my own two hands. I'm gonna help the human race with my own two hands, with my own two hands, with my own two hands. I can hold you with my own two hands. I can comfort you with my own two hands, but you gotta use your own two hands. Use your own two hands, with our own two hands, with my own two hands. I'm glad you enjoyed that.
This is a children's song by Raffi. You might remember it from when your children were little. It's called All I Really Need. All I really need is a song in my heart, food in my belly, and love
Mary has been attending UCV since 1989 and has a long history of involvement with the congregation and the Canadian Unitarian Council. She needs no other introduction. Rosemary is a retired professor of biochemistry from Simon Fraser University, who has been a member of the community since 2018 and is, in addition to the environment team, a member of the zero waste and gardening teams. The service is adapted from one that was presented at the Beacon Unitarian Church for Earth Day earlier this year.
Our opening words are from Adrian Rich, a poem from your Singing the Living tradition called Natural Resources. My heart is moved by all I cannot save. So much has been destroyed. I have to cast my lot with those who, age after age, perversely, with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world. Rosemary is going to physically light the chalice while I read an excerpt from All We Can Save, the book that we're talking about. All speaks to the whole, each and every one, nothing left out. We speaks to the collective, to collaboration, to community, to the relational work at hand. Can speaks to sheer determination. This shit ain't over yet. Save speaks to our opportunity and duty to protect nature, ecosystems, species, and one another.
This is a Joyce Foley song, Gaia. We'd love you to join in with the chorus. We sing it 5 times. Gaia,
next part of the service is a story for all ages. If there were children present, and I'm not sure that there are, I would invite them to join me. If there are people present who are not children but are feeling particularly childlike or wish they were children or would like to pretend that they're children, they could come. Young at heart. So I'm showing us a book called Old Enough to Make a Difference. It'll be up on the screen there, I think. And it is kind of a storybook and kind of not. What it is it's a set of accounts of things that children have done to make a difference, inspired by thoughts about the environment, inspired about their lives, inspired about the world around them. And there are, I think, 12 different sets, and I'm not going to take that much time, but I am going to do 4 of them. And the first is a young girl named Fabienne Overbeek, who lived in the Netherlands, who decided to embark upon a plan to reduce paper waste. She'd seen videos of forests being cut down all over the world, undoubtedly, including forests in British Columbia. And she started a small business selling greeting cards made from recycled paper that contain a surprise inside. They contain seeds, so you can plant the card and things will grow like tomatoes. That is one thing one can do. She did. Second story concerns 2 boys from Britain, Ahan and Amal Patel, who saw plastic straws littering the beach while they were on holiday and thought, this is not good. And at the age of 13 and 17, they set up a straw business, The Last Straw, Cheltenham. They sell bamboo and wheat straws as an alternative to plastic straws. A third story is a story about ocean pollution. This is a 12-year-old named Archie Mandan from Australia. He decided to become a sea bin ambassador. He campaigned for the installation of sea bins, floating trash bins that filter the ocean of plastic debris. Everyone here has probably heard of the Great Trash Spot in the Pacific. This is his bit to try and reduce the size of the Great Trash Glob. Every minute, apparently, a garbage truck of plastic is dumped into our oceans. The fourth and final is Jiahua Chen, who's in China, and she learned, as probably we all know, that an awful lot of food was being thrown away. And she thought, I can do something about that. She set up a food depot to take food that would end up in landfills and distribute it to people in need. And she's collected more than 30 tons of food and redistributed it to over 40 communities so far. That's at 17. There are ways that we can all make a change. That's part of what this service is about. And it doesn't really matter who you are or where you are. Everybody can, with some imagination, do their thing. That is our story.
The words to prepare us for meditation are from Marge Piercy, a poem called To Be of Use. And after a couple of minutes of silence, Kate and Bill will strike up a song again. The people I love the best jump into work head first, without dallying in the shadows, and swim off with sure strokes almost out of sight. They seem to become natives of that element, the black, sleek heads of seals bouncing like half-submerged balls. I love people who harness themselves an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and the muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing, well done, has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn, are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries out for water to carry, and a person for work that is real.
Children's children, we are called as keepers of the earth. We are blessed by every forest. Every forest makes us whole with its riches and its beauty. Every forest feeds our soul, and we are called as keepers of the earth. We are called to speak its sacred word for our children and our children's children. We are called as keepers of the earth. We are blessed by every ocean. Every ocean makes us whole with its riches and its beauty. Every ocean feeds our soul, and we are called as keepers of the earth. We are called to speak its sacred word for our children and our children's children. We are called as keepers of the earth for our children and our children's children. We are called as keepers of the earth.
Good morning. I'm Rosemary, and today I would like to talk to you about why climate action should be a priority for Unitarians. First slide. Okay. All We Can Save, edited by Johnson and Wilkinson, is a collection of essays from 60 women on the forefront of climate action. From campaigning to shut down coal plants to educating about the carbon content of soils, these women are changing the world by providing innovative solutions to transition away from destruction to restoration. The editors, Johnson and Wilkinson, also organized circles for discussion groups, and Mary Bennett and I and several others, Paula is in the audience, are meeting now in one of these circles where we discuss truth, the facts about climate change, and how to have conversations about the impacts with folks who usually turn off climate messaging. Courage, how to summon the guts to act both small scale and for big impact and for the long haul. Solutions. Taking inspirations from the essays we read, we discuss solutions that we can take as individuals and as a community. Mary will be presenting ideas for how to find your climate action and community. I would like to talk to you about the motivation for urgent action. Let's start with some inconvenient data. Next slide. This graph shows the atmospheric CO2 content over the last 800,000 years. The CO2 levels fluctuated, but never exceeded 300 parts per million until just before I was born in 1950. And since then, they have increased dramatically, as you can see, and it's currently about 420 parts per million. As you know, the rising CO2 and other greenhouse gases are the cause of global heating and are due chiefly to burning fossil fuels and deforestation. As a scientist, this data is all the motivation I need for climate action. My goal in life is to put a limit on that carbon spike, bring it down, and I'm sure you want to help too. And that's great because individuals cannot do this alone. It will take a worldwide effort with everyone helping, and this is a key point of the book, helping by working within a community like UCV. Now, there are both risks and opportunity linked to climate change. What are the risks? You hear about climate impacts every day if you listen to the news. For Canadians, the latest in-your-face impacts are to our forest. We want them to be sequesters of carbon. Instead, they're burning up and releasing it. Sadly, the commitments and efforts taken thus far, including by Canada, have not reversed this upward trend in CO2 and temperature. Suffice it to say that climate action is not just about saving polar bears. It's about saving human civilization. Without accelerated and urgent action to curtail fossil fuel burning, hundreds of millions of humans will suffer intensely in this century. Isn't it worth the effort to ratchet up our actions? Next slide. The good news is that the climate crisis presents a historic opportunity to build a better world and learn out of necessity to work together for the common good. The public and private sector will need to work in sync to provide the trillions of dollars that we need to revolutionize the energy production and agriculture, for example. In the process, we will restore health to places on Earth that we have devastated, like the tar sands. And we will reconstitute our place in the biosphere. So it's not the end of society, it's the beginning of a new society. And Unitarians are champing at the bit to be at the forefront as change makers. Next slide. Is climate change just one of many issues? I've had this conversation with people recently where this was their point of view. Professor Bill Winder addressed this issue in his statement to the judge who sentenced him to 3 weeks in jail for sitting in a tree to block installation of the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Bill said, "If climate breakdown breeds societal chaos and collapse where there is no rule of law, no health care, no food aid, no housing advocacy, in short, none of the welfare institutions of society, then all these causes will be irrelevant." If we agree with this, then we need to move climate action higher on the priority list. Next slide. Unitarians and other faith groups have a key role because we're comfortable using the word should. Thus, we can talk about moral imperatives to behave so that if everyone followed our actions, the world would have less suffering. Yet it's also a reality that we're very busy with other endeavors to make the world better. But here's the thing, climate chaos is having a big impact on the other major concerns of Unitarians. I'll speak just to one, human rights. In October 2022, the UN High Commissioner on Human Rights stated, "Throughout the world, human rights are being violated as a consequence of climate change. This includes the right to life, health, food, development, self-determination, water, sanitation, work, adequate housing, and freedom from violence, sexual exploitation, trafficking, and slavery." I didn't say that, the UN High Commissioner on Human Rights said it. So do you need to abandon your passion for human rights, for example? No way. We are going to need knowledge and informed strategy in this arena and many others to effectively tackle the climate issue. But could you adapt a climate lens in all your decisions as you do your work? Next slide. So what does climate action look like at UCV? Action is occurring at the individual, team, and congregational level. Next slide. At the individual level, many of us are arming ourselves with knowledge. We are reducing our personal carbon footprint, for example, by taking transit, eating vegan, and moving our money out of banks like RBC that are funding climate chaos. We're stepping up our political action, for example, by writing to the Minister of the Environment. Next slide. At the team level, lots is happening. The environment team is attending anti-pipeline and save old growth rallies together. We're advocating to remove open pen salmon farms, which harm wild salmon already stressed by warmer waters. We're raising money to make our buildings carbon neutral. And several UCV members have been sued, arrested, and even jailed for resistance against TMX. This photo was taken at the courthouse downtown the day Catherine Hembling, our dear Catherine, was sentenced to 2 weeks in jail for her civil disobedience. The IPA team is looking at insights that diverse cultural traditions can bring to climate action, for example, in cuisine and food practices that reduce waste. The Zero Waste team has helped to reduce our campus emissions via recycling and composting and is sponsoring these small, deep dive discussion circles, such as the All We Can Save circle. The refugee team is doing the really hard work of settling refugees, and this work is only going to expand in the coming years. Next slide. The Buildings and Ground team has installed a heat pump in the admin building in our effort to get off the gas. Let me tell you a little bit more about that. Next slide. An inventory done in 2019 revealed that 82% of, I wish I had a pointer, 82% of our campus-wide emissions are due to burning gas for heating. So it was obvious what to do. If we replace the gas furnaces with electric heat pumps, we'd have a huge impact. And so a heat pump was installed in the admin building in 2021 with the generous help of Hans Elfert. In the first year of use, campus-wide emissions were reduced 17%, and the single pump was not even working very efficiently, so we anticipate even greater reductions. We need congregational support for heat pumps because they're not cheap. Fundraising has begun for heat pumps and window replacements in Hewitt Hall and a heat pump in this sanctuary. So give generously at these fundraising events such as the vegan pizza lunches, and there will be more. Next slide. Going back to the idea of prioritizing climate action, our to-do list might need some revision. The wins for us and the planet, we can become truly carbon neutral and have a good conscience. I don't know about you, but I'm sitting in here all cozy on a January day. I feel guilty that the heat I'm feeling comes at the expense of all the CO2 going into the atmosphere, but we can solve that. We can broadcast our success to other churches and the Metro Vancouver community. We can start a wave of climate action as other churches and organizations get on board. And someday soon, we can put up a big sign out front and on our website that says, last slide, this church campus is carbon neutral. Find out how we did it. Join the movement. Okay, thank you. And I'll be outside after the service if you want to discuss more of the content. Yeah.
Truth, courage, solutions. Big words for a big problem. The origin story of this book of 43 essays and 17 poems was what co-editor Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson refers to as a rage hike. She and Catherine Wilkinson were out for a hike and started expressing their anger that there are so many solutions and people just aren't taking them up fast enough to make the difference that's needed. In a TED Talk titled How to Find Joy in Climate Action, Johnson echoes an earlier talk by Catherine Wilkinson called How to Find Your Climate Thing. Johnson says people ask, what can I do? And she suspects they're hoping for something small and manageable, something that can be done in the comfort of your own home, like eat a little bit less red meat, buy a larger recycling bin, or reuse your wrapping paper. That ship has sailed, she declares. Yes, keep on recycling and taking transit and avoiding food waste, but we all also have to find a way to contribute to systemic solutions for the climate crisis. Rosemary has shared with you some of the impressive wins by our UCV Enviro team. I believe it was formed at a weekend retreat almost 30 years ago now. I was there. At that time, someone actually spoke against starting a committee for the environment by saying, but every committee needs to think about the environment. Good point, actually. I've sometimes felt like a little bit of a lightweight member of this team. My initiatives are things like starting book groups. I say all this as an introduction to the 3 questions that Johnson suggests we all ask ourselves to discover what our climate thing is. If you're in the sanctuary, you might have picked up one of these, and Christian, I think, is going to put it up on the screen for others. So the first question is, what needs doing? Well, a lot, actually. We can't all do everything, so we need to ask a few more questions to find out what's our thing. So question number 2 is, think about what you're already good at. Who are the people in your network you could work with? Look around and join something before you think about starting something new on your own. So humble though it may be, I'm actually really good at starting book groups, and I'm connected with people who want to join. Number 3, and I love this one, if you've taken a lot of time thinking about what needs doing and what you're good at, you may wind up with a very long and overwhelming list of things you should do. Now ask yourself, what gives me joy? So this is the Marie Kondo approach to where you consider each item on your list and ask, does thinking about this depress me or overwhelm me, or does thinking about this spark joy? So as you look over your list and think about all the things that need doing and that you already have some skills and resources to support, ask yourself, which of these would spark joy? Her main point is we need to all be committed for the long haul, and if we're doing things we think are good and necessary, but we don't actually find any joy in them, we won't continue for very long. Wilkinson in her TED Talk uses the term energy rather than joy. She says, does this give me energy back or drain my energy? So where the answers to those 3 questions intersect, that's where your climate thing is. I totally admire the UCV activists who organize protests and even go to jail for justice, as Pete Seeger sings, but that's not my thing. When our UCV president, Mary Beam, was sentenced to house arrest, the judge allowed her to go to church. The Potluck Book and Lunch Club was born. One more reason for Mary Beam to go to church. With Nan Gregory's leadership, this is still going 3 years later. So Johnson in her talk offers this Venn diagram with these 3 questions that you've got in your order of service. I hope you'll take it home and do your own draft and maybe share with some others. Ask them what's their climate thing. The more I get involved with the work of Johnson and Wilkinson, the more I feel both inspired and kind of connected to them. I think I'll start calling them by their first names, Ayanna and Catherine. In the Find Your Climate Thing talk, Wilkinson shares a quotation by Rainer Maria Rilke, which is also one of my favorite messages. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart and try to love the questions. Like locked rooms and like books that are new, now written in a very foreign tongue, do not now seek the answers which cannot be given you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. So if you don't yet know what your climate thing is, I offer you the challenge to live those 3 questions and see what emerges for you. The second part of this talk is about finding your climate community. It may be right here already, or as part of the environment team or one of their small groups. As Rosie mentioned, we're in one of the 2 All We Can Save circles that were formed this spring using the 10-session guide created by Catherine. People commit to reading the book, but when you get together, you explore together what they call generous questions, some poetry, and have deeper conversations. Our group has met 4 times, and I always leave feeling uplifted and joyful. Both our in-person group and the Zoom group are sitting out for the summer. However, since others have expressed interest in joining in, we'll be offering a couple of drop-in sessions over Zoom, giving people who want to join a chance to catch up. Send me a note if you'd like more information. Last week, I, along with 12 other Unitarians, sent a letter to the Canadian Unitarian Council that included this message. We acknowledge that the issues of racism and climate change are inextricably linked. What influences one necessarily influences the other. Climate change, however, is of such immediacy and immensity that it cries out for immediate and immense attention. If we fail to ensure an environment that supports human health, our children and grandchildren, regardless of their race, will be sentenced to a highly precarious existence and/or premature death. I'll close with this quotation from Heather McGee in the book All We Can Save. Inequality and climate change are the twin challenges of our time, and more democracy is the answer to both. I'm going to read a summary of the book All We Can Save, as well as an opening session and an ending. There's 8 sections that we cover in circles with this summary written by the authors. Root, a call, a welcoming, a place to ground, the foundation of Indigenous wisdom, and the wisdom of Earth's living systems, interconnection, emergence, justice, and regeneration. Advocate, strategy, participation, public good, plying tools of legislation and litigation, how we hold the powerful to account, and rewrite the rules with all people in mind. Reframe, language and story, creativity and culture, our means of making sense. To tell the truth, expand, flip, and rekindle it, imagining, evolving, holding on to our humanity. Reshape, problems embedded in the contours of cities, transport, infrastructure, capitalism, coastlines and landscapes where human nature meet, much to reconsider, rend, invert, remake. Persist. Damn if this work isn't hard. Our task towering, the fire of activism on the front lines, in the belly, standing for justice, for health, for the sacred. We don't have to do this alone. Feel. Awake, aware, attuned, hearts break, souls shake with anxiety. Can't skip this, struggling, mourning, raging, healing, a ferocious love for the planet we call home. Nourish, soil, food, water, sky, inseparable, the foundations of our aliveness, collaborating with and supporting nature, microbes, farmers, photosynthesis. Rise. Generations, growing, giving, gathering, nurture community and transformation for a future that holds us, all of us. This is the work of our lifetimes. Blue Boat Home.
Told that this is one of your very favorite songs, Blue Boat Home, and we love it too. So let's end with joyful singing about our blue boat.
Though be lonely, I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my pride and heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor nor port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my daughter, as I fly the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in a beautiful blue home. I give thanks to the waves upholding thee, hail the great winds urging me on, breathe the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor nor port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue home. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue home.
We extinguish our chalice flame, but not the warmth of this courageous community, the light of learning, and the vision of new ideas, the spark of joy that starts us on a new path and gives us the needed energy. These we carry in our hearts and minds, ready like an emergency kit to bring out at a moment's notice. Let's sing Carry the Flame.
We're going to give you a chord here. That's exactly.